Hello, my name is Maisie Shalom, and the title of my study is Teaching Letters in Early Childhood Special Education Using Incremental Rehearsal. So in this study, I implemented an evidence-based intervention in order to teach letter names to preschool students who were receiving early childhood special education services on my caseload. The idea for this intervention began when I was reflecting upon my previous experiences working with kindergarten students in special education and seeing the varying levels of foundational skills that students would enter kindergarten with, and how those low levels of foundational knowledge in letters especially, but there's others as well, would impact their progress throughout that first year of formal education for them. So through additional research, my own experience was validated. There's a ton of research out there that does demonstrate how important letter name knowledge is, as well as other early literacy skills. But there is a big group of research out there that just talks about the importance of specifically letter name knowledge. And in 2008, the National Early Literacy Panel reported that knowledge of letters upon entry to kindergarten was shown to be predictive of later reading and spelling skills. So that's important because as peers of these students who enter kindergarten with higher letter recognition skills, they continue to make gains given the normal general education instruction. But students who enter kindergarten with little to no knowledge of letter names, they struggle throughout the school year. The instruction is it's going past them. They're not retaining it, and there can be a gap that starts in their performance. And without proper intervention, the gap in that performance can persist throughout later school years. So I chose to implement an intervention called Incremental Rehearsal, or IR for short. It's a flashcard intervention that pairs unknown stimuli with known stimuli in a fashion it's sequential and repetitive, and it's to enhance learning. So essentially, it goes on the basis of that activating background knowledge, which would be the known stimuli in this intervention. Activating that background knowledge is able to provide a link to new learning and new information, which would be the unknown stimuli that I was teaching them, and overall just resulting in higher acquisition and retention of learning. There we go. So previous studies that used IR, they've included teaching multiplication facts, sight words, and letter sounds. Studies have been conducted with elementary students mostly, but there are a couple studies that have used preschool students as well. IR has been effective with teaching English language learners as well as students with learning disabilities. So in this study, I wanted to be able to help students who will be entering kindergarten in the fall to learn more letter names, in the hopes that any gap that they may have had compared to their peers in letter name knowledge at kindergarten entry would be minimized by using this IR intervention during preschool. So essentially, it's another attempt in the field of education to find a way to close performance gaps that we know as educators exist among populations of students. But this specific gap is of utmost importance, I believe, because its implications extend beyond early childhood, beyond the classroom, and well into adulthood for literacy rates and career trajectories and educational attainment, and just overall those big life outcomes are affected. So the methods I used in this study, there was 3 preschool students that participated. 2 were females. Both of them were 4 years old. They actually had the same exact birthday, so they were the exact same age. They were receiving services under developmental delay category, and there was one 5-year-old male who was receiving services under the category of autism spectrum disorder. At the beginning of the study, all students were planning on attending kindergarten in the fall, but midway through, a decision was made with the parent in the IEP team of student 2 to have her attend another year of preschool in the fall. So she's actually entering kindergarten in the fall of 2023 now. When deciding on choosing participants, I looked at their level of letter name knowledge compared to their same age peers and the ones that are in their preschool classroom. So all the participants in this study had significantly less knowledge of letter names than their peers, despite having good attendance and being present for all the instruction that was given in the regular preschool room. The next step was to determine which letters I was going to use in the IR intervention for each student. So through pre-assessments, I determined letters for each student. They were all individual, but in order to have it be eligible for the IR intervention, the letter had to be unknown to the student. It had to be repeated or echoed correctly, so just to make sure that there were no speech errors that were going to affect the intervention outcomes. And I did not use any letters that were part of their first name. Just because in our preschool room, that occurs naturally and repeatedly throughout their preschool day of instruction in letters in their own name, writing their name, identifying their name from a group of names. So to make sure that that instruction wasn't going to affect the results of the IR intervention, I excluded those letters. So of the remaining letters for each student, I chose 12 for each, and then I grouped them into 4 sets. So I had 4 letter sets, and each set had just 3 letters in it. And I kept visually similar letters, or I separated visually similar letters into different sets, separated vowels, and just in order to equate the difficulty of each set for the students. I used a multiple baseline across subjects design in order to determine how effective IR was in teaching letter names to these students. All intervention sessions were taking place in a conference room that was adjoining the classroom, and all sessions were just myself and the students, so they were in a one-to-one setting. Early on in the study, I did include stickers, a play microphone, and just different toys as possible reinforcers for their performance. I also used a sand timer that allowed the participants to see how much time they had left before they received that reinforcer, just thinking about their developmental level and attention span and whatnot. So all participants in all of the sessions, they were provided with reinforcement right after the session. Didn't matter what progress they had made throughout that session, they all got that reinforcement. And that helped to ensure that participants would be willing to participate in future sessions when I would ask them to, because I would come during their free play time and I would ask them to come with me. So, taking a preschooler away from free play time, I had to make sure that they wanted to come with me and they were ready to do their best. So during baseline sessions, I would present all 12 letters. Again, those 12 letters were individual for each student, and I just recorded their responses as correct or incorrect. So there was no time limit on those sessions. And during intervention, each session began with a presentation of all of the 12 letters. I recorded their responses, and then I would go into the incremental rehearsal intervention, which is just the sequence in which you present the known stimuli and the unknown stimuli. None of the participants reached mastery on letter set 1 during this study, so letter sets 2 through 4 were not touched. They were not introduced at all. Sessions were over if a participant correctly responded throughout an entire incremental rehearsal sequence with 1 letter set, or when 5 minutes passed, whichever came first. So, and actually student 3 is the only student that sessions ended because he correctly responded during IR. Student 1 and student 2, their sessions always ended at 5 minutes. They were not able to get through a full sequence of IR with correct responding. All right, I'm going to stop here and do a part 2 where I discuss the results and discussion portions of the study.